Hi, Ryan here from STEMy Stuff, and today, to fret or not to fret, that is going to be the question. I'm going to use a couple of very simple stick guitars here in order to talk with you about the ways that you can choose to fret or not fret your guitars. And it really comes down to how much time you have in your classroom and what the skill level is of you and your students and how much time you're willing to spend on this. So, the simplest way you can build one of these things is do not fret it. Don't make a very deep groove in your saddle or in your nut. Leave the string nice and high and play it with a slide. This is the classic diddly bow one-string guitar played pretty much by ear. The marks on your neck for where the fret locations would be can still be helpful to help you get an idea, but you get an idea that you're just going to play it by ear, just ever so lightly. Rest like a socket, or this is a piece of a graduated cylinder that I've cut off and polished, and just slightly, you're not pushing down the string to the neck, you're just laying that on the string, and that's really setting the length of your string. So
here's a close look at that guitar. The main thing is that the groove in the saddle is not very deep or down in the nut, and that string is really nice and high.
Your next best option would be to use thumbtacks or upholstery tacks as frets. It works pretty well. It's very easy. You just tap them in with a hammer and it sounds and plays really nicely.
Unlike with the fretless guitar, on this guitar we want that string to be nice and low over those frets, but not so low that they buzz on the frets when you play.
So this is a pretty good option. It's easy, it's cheap, and it's effective. Your next best option is to go with what we call fake frets. Fake frets are like real frets, but not really real frets. So all we did is took pieces of coat hanger, nails with the heads and the tips cut off, any piece of stout wire that you can find, and we glue them into the neck. Before we do that, we use a table saw to cut an extremely shallow little scratch in the neck at the fret location to glue those things into so they sit nice. You could also do that with a knife, but a table saw with a miter gauge is the way to do it. And if you're going to be bending notes like Jimi Hendrix, having a real fret is the only way you can do that.
As I was saying, this process starts off at the table saw. We use a miter gauge with the blade set very low to just cut a very small slot for that fret to lay in. Here's what the finished product looks like, and then you can use hot glue or use super glue and take your pieces of wire and lay them in there. If you cut them a little short, that's actually better. Otherwise, you have to cut the ends off and make sure you file those ends smooth so that you don't scratch your hand as you play. Similar to the guitar made with tacks, you're going to want this string to be nice and low over those frets, so adjusting the depth of the notch in the saddle and the nut is important.
And I think your last option, if you're going to make a really nice guitar, if you want it to be the best that it can be, you should use actual fret wire. We sell actual fret wire, but I'll tell you that it is a job. It is not something that I would ever do with a bunch of middle schoolers. Maybe an individual middle schooler, and even then it would be a challenge. It's a challenge for anybody. It takes a lot of patience and precision, and you should definitely practice it on a piece of scrap neck before you try to fret the guitar that you just spent the last many weeks building.
That sounded like a man who had some experience. So the process starts with cutting a very narrow slot at each fret location. You have to have a saw with an extremely thin blade, a thin curved saw. You don't have one this thin, you have to buy one. And you need to have some kind of a guide, whether that's a miter box or I made a little block here that helps me to stay square to the neck and also vertical. It also acts as a depth stop. You want to saw these down about 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch at each location. There are 14 frets on a regular STEMy stuff guitar, so you're going to do this 14 times. Then you grab your fret wire, and it's got a little barb on the back side, a tang, that has to get tapped down into place. And once you get it in place, you trim it with an end nipper. Now, this process is frustrating. You can see that on this one here, actually, I end up skipping it. I actually hollered an awful lot after I wrecked my neck there, and had to clean that up later on. But you go along one at a time, tapping those down, and using some kind of a hardwood block over the top of them to tap on with a hammer is also a good idea. I didn't do it here so that you could see what I was up to, but you just go down along the line, tapping these things and trimming them off. And you should know that there's many minutes of video that have been cut out of this video. It's a process for sure. When you're all done, you really need to file the ends of those frets so that you don't scratch yourself. And here is what my Wisconsin guitar looked like when it was done. The fret wire really looks nice when it's all finished, provided you didn't screw up your neck in the meantime.
Regardless of how you fret your guitar or not, I hope that you have a good time tweaking around with different options, maybe taking it apart and trying it again a different way, and just really enjoying the process of making your guitar the best that it can be. Thanks for joining me today. Keep it STEMy.